Thank you for being here, honestly. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being part of this church. And this morning, we're going to be in Genesis 49. We're almost done. 2 more weeks after today in Genesis. And if you even, as you're flipping there, if you even glance at it, you're going to see that it's a long list of names and blessing, and you might be thinking, what on earth are we going to be talking about today? But before we get there, I wanted to tell you a story, and it's a story about my absolute favorite theologian, and he's shaped me so much personally, but also he's probably shaped Christianity, Western Christianity, probably more than any other theologian there ever was, and that is Augustine. And if you don't know about Augustine, he was a wild teenager, okay? Perhaps not unlike yourself, actually. He was a wild, rambunctious teen. And one of my favorite stories he tells from when he was a wild, crazy teenager, not a Christian, was this. He and all his little hoodlum friends, every single night, would go into their neighbor's yard and steal pears from the neighbor's tree. And by the way, this is like 400, okay, 400 AD. I mean, there's not a lot of other stuff to steal, okay? So you might be thinking pears, like, why not steal something more of substance? Pears was a big deal at this point in time, okay? So every single night, he and his little hoodlum friends cross the fence, go into the neighbor's yard, and steal pears every single night. And as an old man, Augustine is looking back, thinking about this story, and he says this. And when I first heard this story, this is the part that stuck with me forever, and I wonder if it will for you too. He said, every night, I'm stealing these pears, and then I realized I don't even like the taste. Every night, I'm going into my neighbor's yard, I'm taking from him, and I don't even like pears. And when he's writing about this as an old man, he's saying, why? Why? Why was I doing that? Why was I stealing pears and I don't even like the taste? Because he goes on to say, you know what I did with them instead? I would throw them to the pigs. I walk back, I take a bite to, do it with my friends, but then I throw it to the pigs on the way back. So he's saying, as an old man, why? Why night after night am I stealing pears to throw to pigs? And brings up that story to tell us about our sin nature. Why was he stealing something every single night when he didn't even like the taste? For the thrill of it. Just to do it. For teenage angst. Maybe for the exact same reason, kids smoke cigarettes by the dumpster when they can't stand the taste. For the thrill of it. Just because. Augustine's point is this is how we are hardwired. This is our nature. This is our core problem. We are in active rebellion against God, and we do sinful things, and we don't even know why. The psalmist said this, and he's talking about himself. He says, "For I was born a sinner, yes, from the moment my mother conceived me." So as Christians, this is what we believe. From the start, we are sinful. From the moment we are born, from conception, we have inherited the sin of Adam. And years later, Augustine's an old man, he's a theologian, and he's debating another theologian, which probably doesn't sound interesting to you at all. For me, it's like fascinating. I'm like, oh, geez, what are these guys saying? So you have Augustine on one side, and you have a guy named Pelagius on this other side. And Pelagius says, you know what? People are not born naturally bad. People are instead naturally good. People are not inherently sinful. And Augustine goes, no, you don't understand. You don't understand. And because you don't understand our problem, Pelagius, you don't understand our solution. Our solution is that God extends grace to us when we are undeserving. Our problem is that we are so broken, our minds, our bodies, and our will have all been corrupted. But if you don't understand that problem, how could you ever understand our solution? So Augustine goes, for grace to be grace, it must be free and it must be undeserved. That is our solution. That God looks down on his creation and extends grace to us. It is the Christian who understands that our problem is sin. I cannot overcome my sin on my own. I cannot save myself in this state. I cannot do, as culture says, if you ask culture, what's the greatest good anybody can do? What's the purpose of life? What's the greatest ethic anybody could have? Just be a good person. What if I'm so corrupted, sin has corrupted me so badly that I don't even know what good is? And my definition of good is not the same definition as God's definition of good. What if that's how broken I am? Because I steal pears, even though I don't like the taste of them. I say all that to say this. Christianity is unique among all worldviews and all religions because it is the only worldview in which it is not about your effort. It is not about how you save yourself. It is not about how you achieve something on your own behalf, right? It is about a God who comes down to rescue you. Let me just put it to you this way. So rescue, salvation, in Judaism or Islam is based entirely about how you keep the law. It's based upon what you do. Rescue in Hinduism is based upon your karma. Do your good deeds outweigh your bad deeds? Rescue in Buddhism is based upon you achieving nirvana through meditation and rejecting materialism. What about secularism? Because, all right, we don't really have a lot of Hindus in our life. I don't know any Buddhists. What about secularism, which is the vast majority of our friends and family who are not believers? What about secularism? Secularism, how do you save yourself in secularism? Rescue and secularism is based upon yourself. It's based upon you. So you find rescue in your job. You find rescue in your legacy. You find rescue in your happiness. And it is Christianity and Christianity alone that looks at all the other worldviews and says, no, rescue comes from a God who came down and saved you. Rescue is not based upon your work, but the work of somebody else, somebody far greater than you. It is not based upon what you do. And why am I saying this? This list that we have today, this long list of names, what's the point of any of this? What's the point of talking about pairs and stuff like that? The point that we're going to see today is that rescue comes from Judah. The rescue you so desperately need comes from the line of Judah. And that's what we're going to see in our text today. So as we get into our study, understand this. We have a problem. We have a problem. We need to be rescued, but we don't know where to find our rescue. So we look in all kinds of things. Now, some respond by saying, I don't need to be rescued. Rescued from what? Look at my house. Look at my wife. Look at my husband. Look at my job. Look at my car. Look at all my success. What do I need to be rescued from? But that person doesn't understand that they have found rescue in those things. Their salvation, they are looking for their salvation in those things. So take away the house. Take away the car. Take away the job. Take away the success. And what do they really have? Because that's where they were finding their rescue. Now, a subset of those people will say, so what? Take away everything and I'll build it back again. I was poor once, and look what I did. I can do it again. Take away everything, and I start over. I can do it all again. But in that case, where do those people truly find rescue? In themselves. In themselves. And their Bible is their biography. So today we're looking at the story of Jacob on his deathbed. And death comes to everybody. So picture that person who finds rescue within themselves. And as they lay on their deathbed, and that incredible mind that led to so much success, that sharp mind has now become dull. That incredible strength they had, that incredible worth ethic they had, that focus. But now, as they're on their deathbed, they are too weak to even feed themselves. They have found rescue in themselves, but they cannot even save themselves from their own death. And if you think about it, that's really the only thing worth saving yourself from. If you're going to save yourself from anything, it might as well be death. So others will find rescue and happiness or legacy, but those are fleeting things. Now, what you're likely actually thinking right now is, but I'm at church. I'm here. Obviously, I know where to turn to for rescue. Obviously, I understand that I got to go to Jesus. Why does this matter to me? In Exodus, God rescues Israel from slavery in Egypt. And maybe you remember, God leads them through the split Red Sea. I mean, they have been rescued. I mean, that is salvation from slavery. But sometime later, Moses goes up the mountain to get the law from God. As he comes down from the mountain, what does he see? Them worshiping a golden calf. The exact same people who walked through the Red Sea. Moses turned his back for a minute. What must have felt like, I turned my back on you for a minute and look at what you guys did. I bring that all up to say, that's us. We will worship anything. Despite everything that God has done in our lives, we will turn to anything and worship anything else. Calvin said this. He said, the human heart is a factory of idols. What does that mean? We'll turn anything into an idol. Your heart will turn anything into an idol. So maybe, yes, you understand where to find rescue. You may think you know where to go to for rescue, but when you are faced with crisis, where do you turn to first? Do you turn to Christ or a counterfeit? When everything in your life is falling apart, where do you turn to first? Our text it feels like this long list of blessings that feel random, but the main idea is this, that rescue comes from Judah. The rescue you truly need, the rescue that the world truly needs, we have. But where do we need to find it? It's not in our money, it's not in our jobs, it's not in our children. It's in Jesus. And Christ alone. And Christ comes from the tribe of Judah. Why does Moses include this? So that we know where to turn to for the Messiah. The true rescue we need comes from the tribe of Judah. The Lion of Judah, as we read this morning in Revelation. Now, our text is a little different. It's going to feel more like a history lesson and a recap, but just stick with me. And you might think, what's the point of this? But the purpose is to show you how God is bringing rescue. If you can think a year ago when we were looking at the promise that God makes to Abraham of your family will be this great nation. And with this family, I'm going to bring about rescue. Moses is drawing an end to this narrative, and he's trying to show you how that promise still applies, and here's how it's coming. Here's the fulfillment of it. And it keeps coming and coming and coming all the way to Jesus. That's why this text matters to us. So as we get into this, will you just pray with me? Lord, as we open up your word today, just ask that you would just begin to soften our hearts right now, Lord. Whatever pride there is, whatever hardness there is, that you would soften it. Lord, that we would reject every other idol, Lord. I focus on you and you alone, and that you would give us fresh minds to understand the truth of your word. And Lord, I just ask that you would help me to teach this in a way that is honoring and glorifying to you. And pray this in your name, and everybody said, amen. Amen. So let me set the scene for you. Like I said a second ago, Jacob is on his deathbed. And this is not the most exciting text. In fact, if you're new here, you might even be wondering why. Like, why would we even spend time on this? Like, why not just skip it, actually, and do something else? Let's do John 3:16 instead or something like that. But here's what we believe here, and we believe it really strongly, that the whole Bible is for our edification. So every single verse. And that means even this. And so it is so important that we can understand how this is for our benefit and for our edification. So even though that this is a long list of names, it really does matter to us this morning. So let's begin. So Genesis 49, starting in verse 1. Then Jacob called together all his sons and said, "Gather around me, and I will come, and I will tell you what will happen to each of you in the days to come. Come and listen, you sons of Jacob. Listen to Israel," that's important, keep that in mind, "your father." So when Noah died, he gathered his sons together and he blessed them. When Abraham died, he gathered his sons together and blessed them. When Isaac was dying, he gathered his sons together and blessed them. And now it's Jacob's turn. But the significance of this is that this is not just about Jacob, but it's about Israel. And that's why it's important that it mentions Israel here. This is about that covenant that God made with Abraham all those chapters ago that we looked at a year ago. And how God would redeem a people. How God would have a people for himself. And the fulfillment and the continuation of that promise is what this is about. This is why Jacob says, "Come to me, sons of Jacob, listen to Israel." Because it's bigger. It's bigger than just a family. This is about Israel. It is about the promise God made. So keep that in mind as we go through this list. And now, this list is weird. This list is not the kids, the sons, in order of age. It's order of the wives, and then by age for the most part. But it's not perfect, and we actually don't know why that is. But let's get started. So the first is Reuben. And I'm going to read this from the CSB because the NLT is actually missing some of the wordplay that goes on here, but I'll tell you what it says instead. So 49:3, Reuben, you are my firstborn, my strength, and the first fruits of my fertility, excelling in providence, excelling in power. And if you have the NLT, you know that it says first instead of excel. But you read this, and if you didn't know anything else about this story, if you didn't know anything else about these guys' relationship, you think this is one proud dad, right? One proud dad just boasting about his firstborn son. You know, and you probably, if you have a kid and you have your oldest kid, you probably remember that of like, oh, I remember this child of my youth, the kid who teaches you how to be a parent, like all those things, right? And not only that, but Reuben's supposed to be the heir. He's the hope. He's the heir of this vast fortune. It's supposed to be Reuben. When Jacob's gone, it's supposed to be Reuben who leads this family forward. But it won't be Reuben. Why? So let me read this again. This is some of the wordplay, okay? Reuben, you are my firstborn, my strength, the first fruits of my fertility, excelling in providence, excelling in power, turbulent as water, you will not excel. Excel, 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 you will not excel. Because you got in your father's bed and you defiled it. He got into my bed. So when it says Reuben's as turbulent as water, in the Hebrew, what that phrase literally means is he's boiling. He's boiling water. Unstable. And how? What's a proof of him being unstable? Oh yeah, you slept with my wife. So why is Reuben getting this harsh treatment? If you remember all the way back to chapter 35, we saw that Reuben sleeps with Bilhah, who's the mother of Dan and Naphtali. And if you remember, as bad as that is, the reason he does it is not totally what you expect. It's kind of a power play. There's this weird culture thing that's going on here and this custom thing going on here that by doing this, he's trying to take power away from Jacob so he can be the leader of the family. And that is why he's disinherited. And so because Reuben did that, he's no longer the heir. He no longer has the birthright. So, what happens? What happens to the tribe of Reuben, who will come after? The tribe of Reuben never produces anyone of note in the entire Old Testament. The entire narrative of the Old Testament never produces anyone of note. And in Deuteronomy 33, Moses prays that the tribe would not die out because it's so small. So Reuben has lost his birthright. Who's next? Who's next in line? Verse 5. Simeon and Levi are two of a kind. Their weapons are instruments of violence. May I never join in their meetings. May I never be a party to their plans. For in their anger they murdered men and they crippled oxen just for sport. A curse on their anger, for it's fierce. A curse on their wrath, for it is cruel. I will scatter them among the descendants of Jacob. I will disperse them throughout Israel. So Jacob combines these two because they're two whole brothers. But what is he referring to? Because he's really saying here, Simeon and Levi, you're two of a kind, right? You're from the same cloth. So what is he referring to? If you think back to Genesis 34, Simeon and Levi slaughtered the men of Shechem. Now, do you guys remember what happened with that story? It's referring back to Dinah, who's their full sister. And she's been assaulted. But they're trying to patch things back up together. They're trying to marry these two families together. And so the men of Shechem, to try to make nice, all get circumcised because they're trying to join these families together. And they're tricking them. Simeon and Levi are tricking them, thinking that they're going to go through with it. But one night they get in there and they kill everyone. Everyone. That's what this is referring to here. And because of that, because of their incredible violence, that they wiped out this whole people, they lose the birthright. So then what happens to their tribe? So Simeon becomes the smallest tribe in the second census that Moses takes. And in the blessing of Moses in Deuteronomy, he doesn't even mention the tribe of Simeon. They did not have their own land, but would have to share land with Judah. Levi, what happens to Levi? Levi will eventually become the priestly tribe, and they become the residents of the city of refuge. But they are completely scattered, and they hold no land of their own. All right, so now who's next, okay? These three, the three oldest, have all disqualified themselves. Who's next? Who's the heir? And it's Judah. And Judah gets the longest blessing, you'll see. Verse 8, Judah, your brothers will praise you. You will grasp your enemies by the neck, and all your relatives will bow before you. Judah, my son, is a young lion that has finished eating its prey. Like a lion, he crouches and lies down. Like a lioness, who dares to rouse him? And there's some wordplay here that I don't want you to miss. In Hebrew, Judah sounds like the word to praise. So this is what's interesting going on here. So Judah, so praise, your brothers will praise you. And so Judah is this lion, and this is where we get the term, the Lion of Judah. And in the Old Testament, a lion is this metaphor for strength, the same way it is today. But it's also pointing to the future kingship that will come from Judah. It's Judah's line that will produce the kings. Think of David and Solomon. They come from Judah. So with that in mind, look at this. This is so important right here. The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from his descendants, until the coming of the one to whom it belongs, the one whom all nations will honor. So the scepter is the king's rod, if you can picture it. And this is saying that the kingship will not depart from Judah until ... until one day. Until the coming of the one whom it belongs. What on earth is that talking about? What is that talking about? In Hebrew, the word here is Shiloh. And what does it mean? It means, to him the kingdom belongs. It's talking about the Messiah. The one who was to come. The one who would crush the head of the serpent. See, beloved, this is what this is all about. That from the start, God had a plan of rescue. How God would rescue his own people to himself. And the plan goes through Abraham. And now it is continuing through the tribe of Judah. And that rescue comes from Judah because Jesus is a descendant of Judah. It is Christ who is the Lion of Judah. He is Shiloh. He is the one to whom the kingdom belongs. He is the one whom all nations one day will bow down to. Because one day, all nations will know the truth. When the Son of Man comes again in his glory, all nations will eventually know the truth. There is a God. And there is a God who rescues his people. And that rescue comes from this tribe of Judah. That's why this is so important. Now, let me quickly work through the rest of this. And we're going to talk about why this matters for us. So continuing with Judah, he ties his foal to the grapevine, the colt of his donkey to the choice vine, a choice vine. He washes his clothes in wine, his robes in the blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine, and his teeth are whiter than milk. And what this is getting at, this suggests that the tribe of Judah will be prosperous. They'll have grapevines so big and so thick you can tie your donkey to it, and the donkey won't be able to pull away and break it. So prosperous that they can wash their clothes in wine because they have so much wine. And the dark eyes and white teeth thing was considered beautiful in their culture. So not only are they prosperous and rich, but they're beautiful. So not only does the tribe of Judah produce kings and the Messiah, but it becomes the largest tribe. Now next, verse 13, Zebulun will settle by the seashore and will be a harbor for ships. His borders will extend to Sidon. So Zebulun would settle, the tribe would settle near Phoenicia, where they would be on a trade route for the Sea of Galilee. But it's interesting, they're not directly on the Mediterranean Sea, but they're close to the Sea of Galilee. And I'll show you where all these guys end up in a second. Verse 14, Issachar, this is a compliment, by the way, okay? So just read that, okay? Issachar is a sturdy donkey. You know, like, oh, thanks, Dad. Resting between two saddle packs. When he sees how good the countryside is and how pleasant the land, he will bend his shoulder to the load and submit himself to hard labor. So what this means and how it's a compliment is saying he's strong. He's strong like this donkey, and he's industrious. And later, this tribe would be enslaved by the Canaanites, which is likely what this verse is referring to about the labor it would have to submit to. All right, so next, Dan. And I'm going to read this from the CSB. Dan will judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan will be a snake by the road, a viper beside the path, that bites the horse's heels so that its rider falls backwards. I wait for your salvation, Lord. Okay, what's going on here? This is weird, right? And if you have the NLT, you'll notice that it says govern instead to judge, but it's actually really important that the word is judge. So Dan, his name means to judge. And so again, this is wordplay that Jacob's doing here. Dan will judge, but the way that he's talking about judging is accuser, which I'll come back to in a second. So this is why the snake part is significant. Where else in Genesis have we seen snakes in heels? You know what I'm talking about? So the snake that's going to bite a horse's heel? What is this talking about? It's likely a reference back to Genesis 3:15 in the garden. This is God talking, and I will cause hostility between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He will strike your head, and you will strike his heel. And again, okay, so then if Dan is judge, but really it's this accuser thing, who else is called accuser in the Bible? Satan. Satan literally means accuser. Okay, so what on earth is this talking about? What all this is probably pointing to is God's eventual victory over Satan. And that's why I think he says this, right? I wait for your salvation, Lord. I wait for that day. God, I wait for that day that you actually come and fully deal with this problem of evil. God, I wait for the day when you come and you actually deal with the problem of the enemy. So what happens to Dan? Dan, as a tribe, is not really religiously upright. And in fact, they abandon their land and they move to the north of Israel. Verse 19, Gad. Gad will be attacked by marauding bands, but he will attack them when they retreat. So Gad settled near Jordan and was constantly attacked, but became a great warrior tribe as a result. Verse 20, Asher will dine on rich foods and produce food fit for kings. And Asher sets on the coastal land and the fertile lands, and it actually does end up providing food to the palace. 21, Naphtali is a doe that is set free that bears beautiful fawns. Okay, this is an incredibly difficult verse to interpret, and we're actually not sure what it means at all. Because in Hebrew, it contains homographs. Okay, and if you don't, I'm not an English person, okay, as you know, if you've ever heard me talk, okay? What a homograph is two words that are the same but mean different things. So bat and bat. Bank and bank. And so this verse has those words in it in Hebrew. So because of that, we actually don't know what it's referring to and what it's trying to reference. So it's just really, really difficult to understand. So, okay. And I'm sorry to bring up a problem without a solution. So I hate doing that. 22, getting to Joseph. Joseph is the second longest blessing besides Judah. So 22, Joseph is the foal of a wild donkey, the foal of a wild donkey at a spring. One of the wild donkeys on the ridge. Archers attacked him savagely. They shot at him and harassed him, but his bow remained taut, and his arms were strengthened by the hands of the mighty one, of Jacob, by the shepherd, the rock of Israel. May the God of your father help you. May the Almighty bless you with the blessings of the heavens above and the blessings on the watery depths below, and blessings of the breast and womb. May my fatherly blessings on you surpass the blessings of my ancestors, reaching to the heights of the eternal hills. And may these blessings rest upon the head of Joseph, who is prince among his brothers. So this blessing in particular seems to be a little bit of a biography about Joseph. The whole thing about archers attacking him, it probably has to do with his enslavement and imprisonment in Egypt. And what's interesting about this is Jacob uses different names of God in this blessing to tell us something about God's character. So let me just point this out to you real quick. You'll see Mighty One. It's talking about God's power. Jacob calls him Shepherd, which is getting after God's love. Rock of Israel, which is talking about God's dependability. God of your father is pointing to God's covenantal faithfulness. And Almighty, because God can do whatever he wants. He's sufficient to do what he promises. Now, as you know, you likely know there's no tribe of Joseph. And that goes back to what we read last week. It's actually split between his two sons, and they become two half-tribes. So you have the tribe of Ephraim and the tribe of Manasseh. And who comes from those tribes? Well, Samuel will come from the tribe of Ephraim, and Gideon will come from the tribe of Manasseh. And final brother, okay, we're almost done. We finally come to little Benjamin. 27, Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. We're all youngest siblings, right? All youngest siblings are this way, right? Devouring his enemies in the morning and dividing his plunder in the evening. So, and that's interesting because we don't really know anything about the tribe, or Benjamin himself. We don't really learn a lot about his character. But Benjamin would be a very small tribe, but produce incredible warriors. Incredibly fierce warriors, particularly great archers and great slingers, okay? And both Sauls, this is interesting, both Sauls come from Benjamin. So King Saul comes from Benjamin, and then Saul, who later is Paul, comes from the tribe of Benjamin. And in verse 28, these are the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is what their father said as he told his sons goodbye. He blessed each one with an appropriate message. Okay, so where do these guys actually end up? It's so helpful to see this. As you can see, by far, Judah has the most land in the south, and Simeon shares some land. And then you can see all that stuff. You can see how Zebulun is close to the Sea of Galilee, but not quite. You can see the split of West Manasseh and East Manasseh. And this is where these guys end up. And so now, as we close to the end of this, passages like this can be incredibly difficult to understand. How do they apply to our lives? So let me begin to wrap up with a story. And I started this morning with a story about Augustine, and I would like to close with another one. After he was this rebellious, spear-stealing teen, he became a man who was searching for meaning and purpose. And so he thought he could find meaning and purpose in brilliance, right? Just being the most brilliant guy there was. So he studied philosophy. But it didn't satisfy him. So then he moves on and he tries to find pleasure and in women. But it doesn't satisfy him. So he chased status and he achieved it. He becomes successful. But even that doesn't move the needle in his life or feel like it gives him more meaning. Nothing worked. Nothing could save him. Nothing could fill that hole he had in his soul. It was only when he found Christ that at long last his soul was satisfied. And reflecting back years and years later, he realizes that it was Christ who he needed all that time. It was not success, it was not status, it was not all these women, it was not pleasure. It was Christ and Christ alone. And so he says this, he says, our hearts are restless, O Lord, until they find rest in you. Our hearts are restless, O Lord, until they find rest in you. The point of this whole chapter is we would know where to find that rest. Where can we find that rescue? The answer is it comes from the tribe of Judah. It comes from the Lion of Judah. It comes from Shiloh. The only place we can find rescue is in Jesus. Now, maybe you don't think you have some idol you're putting before Jesus. But when you need comfort, where do you turn to for rest? Augustine just said, find rest for our souls. When you are in crisis, when you need rest, when you need something to turn to, where do you go? Do you think your accomplishments or wealth will save you? Do you tell yourself that you can fix it? Or do you turn to Jesus? My point is this: stop looking to false saviors and look to Jesus instead. Don't search for meaning in success or prestige or money. Don't search for it in yourself. As I said when we started, I said there is no other worldview in which salvation is based upon someone else's work. Every other religion is about what you do to go to heaven. Christianity is the only religion that is about what God did for you so you could go to heaven. Think of that. The Son of Judah, the Lion of Judah, leaves heaven to come down and suffer for you. He lives the perfect life. He lives the life that you could not live. He leaves heaven to come and suffer. And think, this was God's plan all along. This was God's plan from the moment that Adam and Eve sinned. As we just read in the garden, Genesis 3, there will be one who conquers death. There will be one who crushes the head of the serpent. There is salvation coming. This was always the plan, that God himself in Jesus would come down to this earth to save you. And he lives the life you could not live. He dies the death you should have died, so you could live the life that he should have lived. One last thing. The Bible talks about foreknowledge, which means that the moment God promised rescue in the garden, he knew how that would apply to you. From the moment sin entered the world, God knew how this promise of salvation would apply directly to you. From the first sin, God had a promise to save you. So why would you ever try to find rescue anywhere else? Let's pray. God, thank you so much for this word and showing us where we can find rest, showing us who you are, Lord. And we just ask that. As so many of us have struggle and crisis, Lord, it's so easy to try to turn to something else. It's so easy to try to turn to anything else. We will turn anything into an idol, Lord. But Lord, protect our hearts, that you would always be our greatest love, because you loved us first, Lord. From the moment in the garden, you were promising how you would save us. So let us understand and know that this doesn't apply to somebody else. This is not somebody else, Lord. This is directly to us. That from the tribe of Judah, salvation will come to us. Just pray that our hearts would be soft enough to understand that, Lord. And we pray this in your name. And everybody said, amen. And just